Welcome to Family Law Talk. Family Law Talk. Presented by Kirk Stange of Stange Law Firm, PC. Stange Law Firm is a multi-state family law firm. Now, here's your host, Kirk Stange.
Welcome to Family Law Talk. We have an interesting topic today. The topic is the key person discount. And this episode today is based on an article on our blog, familylawheadquarters.com, dated March 5th, 2026. And the title of that article is Understanding the Key Person Discount and Business Valuation. So as a follow-up to the episode today, go on over to familylawheadquarters.com and read this article for more information. But let's go ahead and jump on into the topic at hand. The reality is that any divorce case can be difficult and can be challenging, but when you throw in a business valuation, it can make it especially cumbersome, okay? So in some divorce cases, one or both of the parties owns a business of some kind, okay? And when that business is owned by one or both of the parties, one of the most important things that has to take place in order to resolve the divorce is to value the business. So what is the business worth is the critical question. And in some cases, one party buys the other party out of the business. In other cases, maybe the parties sell the business and divide whatever the revenue is that comes from the sale. In other cases, there could be some sort of offset where one party keeps the business and then the other party gets other assets that roughly equal the value of the business itself, okay? But at the end of the day, you've got to value the business. And when you get into business valuations, it is a murky topic, and this is where it can be somewhat subjective, okay? There's three approaches to evaluating a business. The first approach is what's called the income approach, where a business valuator looks at the income a company has generated over the course of time, and they create projections in terms of what they think the business will do in the future. And based on these projections, they then come up with a value for the business itself, okay? In other cases, business valuators might use the market approach. And the market approach is much like home sales, where you look at comparable sales in terms of homes that are comparable to the homes the parties may own, let's say, right? And you look at these comparables and you say, okay, on the market, this is what we think this home would be worth. It's the same thing in business valuations. If you can find similar businesses that were sold, then you can look at these comparables. The problem with that approach can be there aren't always comparable businesses in a given market, especially if you get into niche areas of businesses. And in the same time, with the income approach, the downside to that approach is look, it's hard to project what a business is going to do in the future. So just because a business made a certain amount of income in the past, it doesn't mean they're going to make that amount of income in the future. The other approach to evaluating businesses is the asset approach. So you look at the value of the company's assets and you evaluate those to come up with the value for the business. This works better where there's equipment, where there's supplies, maybe a warehouse versus merchandise, and you can put a value to that. But the downside of this approach, some businesses don't have a lot of assets. They don't have a lot of equipment. They don't have a warehouse full of merchandise. Maybe it's a professional services business or something like that, and there's just no assets to value, okay? And so look, business valuators go through these three different approaches to evaluating a business. In some cases, a business evaluator will just simply look at one of the methods. In a lot of cases, a business evaluator might give some deference to all three of these approaches and then say, I primarily relied on the market approach or the income approach or whatever. And obviously, business evaluators also have to be cognizant of case law in a certain jurisdiction. There can be some differences by states in terms of what courts in certain jurisdictions want to see, and that can make a difference there as well. But then there's this concept of this key person discount, which is really the topic at hand, okay? A key person discount recognizes situations where a business is heavily reliant on one particular individual. Okay, and the idea is that if that individual were no longer involved in the business, the business revenue might drop significantly. And if that were to occur, the value of the business would be a heck of a lot less, okay? So think smaller, closely held businesses where you have a single owner or an executive who drives much of the company's success, okay? That person might be responsible for bringing in a majority of the clients or the customers. They might be the individual who manages important relationships with customers, with employees, and they're maybe the glue that holds everything together. Key persons can be the individuals who oversee operations of the business. They might even have specialized expertise in certain areas of the business that could not be easily replaced. Okay, so in these kinds of situations and these kinds of cases, a key person discount can be applied to the business, and this is particularly true where the key person is one of the divorce litigants, right? So the idea is this, is that, look, if that divorce litigant, could be husband, could be wife, if they were no longer in this business, there needs to be a key person discount because that business value presumably would drop without them because they're the glue that holds it all together. Okay, so a key person discount can be a big issue in certain business valuations in a divorce. Okay, and so again, this key person is responsible for generating the company's revenue. They manage the key relationships, they oversee the daily operations, and the idea is the company's value would be significantly lower without them. When you get into this discount, though, there can be a big fact issue, right? One person might think a key person discount should apply. So one of the divorce litigants should say, look, I'm valuable to this company. Without me, this company would be in trouble, and there should be a key person discount. The other divorce litigant or the other spouse may disagree with that and say, no, you're not that important. You know, other people could be hired and brought in, and they could run the company equally as well without your presence, and you're sort of overvaluating yourself, okay? So you can get into this big fact issue about whether or not a key person discount should apply or not apply, and in some divorce cases, this can be a big issue of dispute. And ultimately, when you get into the application of the key person discount, this is going to be heavily dependent upon the facts, okay? So what courts and valuators, business valuators, I should say, should typically do is really get into the granular into the company and determine whether the customers, the clients primarily rely on an individual owner or not. You know, and if that individual owner were no longer part of the company, then the question would be, would the customers and the clients keep coming, or would they not keep coming without that person being there? Okay, and other factors that, again, that are really important to look at is not just servicing of the clients or customers, because some business evaluators can go down this rabbit hole where they say, well, this CEO or business owner, they're not the ones really servicing the clients or customers themselves. So if they're not the ones actually doing it, then maybe a key person discount shouldn't apply because they're not the ones, right, where the rubber meets the road. They're not the ones servicing these clients, so they're not that important. They're not that valuable. But other things that should really be looked at in this analysis, and I think savvy business evaluators look at this, it's not just servicing the clients or customers. It also comes down to who's managing the business. And is it this person who's purportedly the key person? They're the ones who manage the business. And then you get into the issue of who's working with the other employees to make sure that they're doing their essential job functions. Okay? And if it's this purported key person who's doing that primarily, and all these other employees are really looking to this key person, then that would weigh pretty heavily in favor of the one divorce litigant being a key person. But if these employees aren't reliant on one of the divorce litigants for their ability to do their own job, then maybe a key person discount shouldn't apply. Other issues you get into, again, is would the company's revenues and relationships decline if this person were gone? So, I mean, take certain businesses where the customers and the clients are coming primarily because, you know, this purported key person is there in the company, okay? If the customers and the clients wouldn't come without this key person, then that would weigh heavily in favor of a key person discount being applied, and the opposite would also be true. And again, other pieces to this is this concept of kind of the specialized knowledge, the expertise of the particular business owner. Okay, if the particular business owner has particular specialized expertise in terms of the business itself, in terms of the functions of the business, and if they were gone, then the rest of the company wouldn't have that person anymore to rely on. Okay, that would weigh heavily in favor of a key person discount. Let's say the purported key person has strong knowledge of the company's systems. Maybe they developed them. Maybe they developed the management structures, and it's pretty darn unique. Maybe they're heavily involved in the marketing of the company itself, and they're really the only ones who know how the marketing works, and they're the ones who develops the strategy for the company itself. Then that would weigh much more heavily in favor of a key person discount. On the other hand, if other managers could be brought in or other marketing companies could be brought in and they could do basically the same thing, and the person's knowledge isn't that specialized, then that would weigh in favor of no key person discount, okay? Ultimately, if you're going through a divorce and a business valuation is taking place and this key person discount is a big issue in the case, having an experienced business evaluator matters, okay? So make sure you're talking with your attorney and you've got a business evaluator who has experience with these types of issues, okay? This is really critical. If you don't have an experienced business evaluator, they might not know how to navigate the issue of a key person discount, okay? Lots of business evaluators are going to look at the financial documents of the business. They're going to look at the tax returns, the profit and loss statements, and these kinds of things, okay? I mean, this is kind of basic things, but some business evaluators can kind of stop there. They want to look at the financial documents, the tax returns, the P&Ls, these kinds of things, and then that's kind of it. When you get to the issue of a key person discount, it really requires more than that, okay? Obviously, business evaluators are going to look at those financial documents, and they're going to need those. And sure, they're going to rely on those in a lot of respects to come up with a business valuation. But the best business evaluators who are able to deal with issues like key person discounts, they're actually going to take the time to try to understand how the business functions, how clients are obtained, how work's performed within the company, who's actually driving the company's success, and right, so that's going to require interviews of key people within the business itself, managers, employees, and the question's going to be, is the purported key person actually a key person? Are they the one actually driving the business, driving the success, driving the innovation, driving the ideas, the strategy of the company itself? And if the purported key person is the one who's doing that, that should weigh heavily in favor of a key person discount, even if they're the one who's more a CEO kind of role, and they're not servicing the clients themselves, but they're still the one driving the success of the business. A key person discount ought to apply, okay? Business evaluators who don't take the time to learn the business itself, they're just sort of hung up on the spreadsheets and they never learn about the business itself. They're not going to be in the best position to understand whether a key person discount ought to apply or not. And then you get into how much of a key person discount, and then you start talking about math and numbers and these kinds of things, and they're not going to know what actual discount to apply or not apply because they haven't taken the time to learn the business itself, okay? So look, in the end, business valuation is very important in some divorce cases, particularly in cases where one or both of the parties have an interest in a business. And I would just say particularly where they have a majority interest. But look, minority interest can be valuable in some circumstances as well. But when you get into the issue of a key person discount, you want an experienced business evaluator. And I would say particularly if you're a divorce litigant and you believe yourself to be a key person, you're going to want an experienced business evaluator, and one who's not only going to look at the financial documents, but one who's actually going to learn about the business, learn the details of the business, maybe put those spreadsheets and financial documents down for a little bit and learn about the business and get in the granular. And only then can a business evaluator really truly come to determination about whether somebody is a key person or not and whether a discount is warranted or not. Okay, so that's the topic today. Definitely an interesting one and kind of a granular one, but one I wanted to cover because it can be important in some divorce cases. Again, as a follow-up to the episode today, go on over to familylawheadquarters.com, read the article dated March 5th, 2026, titled Understanding the Key Person Discount in Business Valuations. Well, that's our topic today. Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned to our next episode of Family Law Talk coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Family Law Talk with Kirk Stange. Visit StangeLawFirm.com for more about today's topic or to put Stange Law Firm to work for your family today. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri or Illinois reviews or approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The information you obtained in this podcast is not, nor is it intended to be, legal advice. You should consult an attorney for advice regarding your individual situation. We invite you to contact us and welcome your calls, letters, and electronic mail. Contacting us does not create an attorney-client relationship. Please do not send any confidential information to us until such time as an attorney-client relationship has been established. Past results afford no guarantee of future results, and every case is different and must be judged on its own merits. Kirk Stange is responsible for the content. Headquarters, Office, 120 South Central Avenue, Suite 450, Clayton, Missouri, 63105. Kirk Stange is licensed in Missouri, Illinois, and Kansas.